record. And sir, do you understand you are under oath at this time?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Provost.
Bradley, just kind of a little roadmap for today. We're going to address your first 3 interviews where the evidence is shown and the jury has heard and you have heard that your stories were incomplete, they're lies, and want you to have an opportunity to acknowledge what you said throughout those interviews. What matters today is your testimony. And then we'll go back and we will continue with the timeline where we left off back at the trailer. And you will walk us through what happened right up to Devin Peterson's house, where we already dealt with that yesterday. And then we'll get to the burning of the Bronco and what happened after that, leading up to these interviews. Okay? All right. And you'll have to speak up,
All right.
not just nod your head. So, put yourself back on 11/26/2016. Did you have contact with troopers?
Yeah.
Approximately what time of the day was that?
6, 7 at night.
And who were you with?
Alyssa. Alyssa's older sister, Mallory. Taven, Dominic Johnson's little brother, and Austin Barrett.
And what happened when you got pulled over?
They wanted to talk to Alyssa because her parents reported her as a runaway.
Okay. So they talked to Alyssa. They ask her to step out and
Yeah.
away from? All right, so they talked to Alyssa, and then what happened?
They came back and said that they wanted to talk to me.
And they asked you also to exit the vehicle, and where did you go?
Into Trooper Colt's vehicle.
Now, think back at that time. Did you know what he wanted to interview you about at first?
Yes.
What's that?
The disappearance and murder of David Grunwald.
Okay. And do you remember the start of the interview, the questioning at first? Was it about the Bronco? Or you want me to walk you through it?
Yeah.
Okay. So we asked you about the disappearance of David. Do you recall denying any knowledge that you were too intoxicated to remember anything?
Yes.
Was that true?
No.
Did he feed you some evidence that they already had to get you to start talking about what you knew?
Yes.
Do you remember what he told you?
That they had found the Bronco and that there's a cab driver ID'd 3 young kids.
Okay.
But
Go
driver couldn't see who they were, I think.
Right. So then, did he tell you he knew who the other two individuals were in the car?
I don't remember.
Do you remember the statement, Eric for sure had something to do with the disappearance of David? Same with Dominic, 100%?
Yeah.
All right. So what were you thinking at that point, the evidence that they had? That 3 in the Bronco, already identified 2.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Following his track, he asked you, did you know where the vehicle was found?
I know where it was found.
But did you tell him that at the time?
I don't think so, no.
What about when he confronted you about 3 in the cab, which you've already said it, which you've already acknowledged? Do you remember what you said?
That we were partying at the Little Sioux.
Did you keep telling him that you were too intoxicated to really remember?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall the trooper telling you about having an unbelievable opportunity at that time to tell him everything that you knew?
Yes.
What do you think that meant at the time?
I didn't really know what to. I didn't want to.
Okay. This was a fairly short interview, but he confronted you early on as well. Do you recall him telling you, I'm begging you, did you kill David? Do you remember that and how you responded?
I think I said that I didn't know where he was.
As far as the question of not where he was, but did you kill David?
I told him I didn't kill him.
All right, so he took you back to the Bronco, wanting to know who was driving. Were you ready to tell him who was driving at that point?
No.
He asked you if you were scared of Eric and Dominic. Do you remember what you said?
Yes.
What did you say?
That I wasn't scared of them.
That you could beat him up?
Yeah.
Or 3 of them? Because you've had Taekwondo training in the past?
Yes, sir.
So why did you tell him, no, you weren't afraid of them, and that you could take care of yourself, essentially, defend yourself at that time?
I don't know why I told him that.
And you continue to tell him, like, I don't remember 90% of the night because I was too drunk.
Yes, sir.
Was that true?
No.
Why did you lie about that?
Because I didn't want to say anything about the others.
Why is that?
Because they said they said if I talked to the cops that they would hurt me or Alyssa or my family or.
So,
I didn't want it.
on that point, let's take you back to the narrative that you were presenting yesterday, the detailed blow by blow, what happened. This theme of the fear thing, what do you recall, when and where was the first time you really realized this threat on your life? Who said it and what did they say? Do you remember that?
It was Austin Barrett.
And at what point in the sequence of that night and the murder of David was that said to you?
He said that he would kill any of us that talked to the cops about this.
When did he say that?
After David was killed.
Did you have any, aside from the emotional fear you talked about, any other symptoms of the fear?
I had, like sometimes at night I can't sleep. I get lightheaded sometimes.
I mean, at that time, or shortly thereafter.
Lightheadedness, nausea, I had a bloody nose.
I'm going to pose objective. This is vague. When he just finding out general.
Where were you
general
when?
melodies.
Where were you exactly?
Um,
And who was there? And how close was Austin Barrett to you?
when we were driving back up across the Connect River Bridge
After or
after
before?
David
when?
after David was shot.
So after David was shot, you guys went back to the car and you took off, and that's when he made that statement?
It was a few statements.
All right, so you're between where David was murdered and you're heading to Devin Peterson's, is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
And on that ride, he said a few things, and that was one of the things, that threat. What else did he say?
They were just, he was saying that he would kill us, or he would get a hold of our families, or
I object to the or. That sounds like speculation. Again, it
Go ahead.
He's got all the discovery now. He's saying he said this.
Okay, no talk, your objection is speculation. Lay up more of a
What,
foundation.
so,
I'm
It wa-
opposing the word or.
Okay.
That's not testimony, that's speculation.
that was one of the statements that Austin made. He said that he would kill us, and if he couldn't get us, he would try and get our families, or
all right, so just to be clear on this or objection, your recollection essentially is that I was in danger and my
Objection,
family was in
his
danger?
client,
That is leading, so.
Or, in the context of what he's saying, Your Honor, is,
We just testified alternative to or, so the jury has his testimony.
all right,
Rephrased it so that it's on the record what he said.
so I'm just making sure I understand as well, given the objection. It was and or it was both you and or your family, is that it? Or and your
Yes.
family?
same objection leading.
I'll allow that one, that's more of a clarification, so. All right, go ahead.
And that was the first time in this whole episode that you experienced a bloody nose?
yes.
So that was 2.5, almost 3 years ago. During the course of these proceedings, did you have another spontaneous nosebleed?
Yeah, right after we went inside the camper, they brought.
What were you did we did a walkthrough or step in before the jury did, right?
Yeah.
And then the jury came down and each of them stepped in.
Yes.
And when the jury left, what were you feeling at the time when we went down there and you stepped into that trailer again?
Objection relevance.
I agree.
3
What,
years later, he had a nosebleed. I'm sure some people had coughs that day. Some people had
okay,
symptoms.
you made your objection. What's the relevance?
The relevance is, there's a connection, obviously. He had a nosebleed after he was threatened, after David was murdered. And for the first time, he is brought to the scene of the trailer and processing what happened to him. And that, the relevance is that's what triggered that stress, that
Well,
anxiety.
that's speculation what triggered it, but
What do you think?
I'm not,
triggered it?
I'm not gonna, let's move
We already
on.
have that in evidence from.
And
Trooper
you've
Young.
established he got one?
That's a big medical leap, Judge. I mean.
It is,
Well, I
it
mean,
is.
the
You-
folks that are gonna make judgment about these facts can, you know, take it into consideration or not, but.
And
he
it's
has-
part of the record. He got a bloody nose, he's testified, after the incident, and then he got one when he looked at the trailer. I think you can leave it at that. I don't think you can dig into what is the medical reason for it.
I'm trying to get his state of mind, Your Honor. What was his state of mind after viewing the trailer?
That's fine, that's a different question.
I've never heard of nosebleeds being connected to anybody's state of mind. I've heard of nosebleeds from dry Alaska air, from people picking their noses.
Okay, well,
I don't know how many times we have to argue this, Your Honor.
A lot.
State of mind includes, it's a combination in the brain of the emotional brain and the cognitive
okay,
brain.
Mr. Provost, but we're talking now about state of mind at this moment in time, the last week or two. Okay, what is the relevance of that?
The relevance is he's in a trial and he needs to fix what he didn't do at the time, which is why he's here now, why he took the stand.
Okay, but what is the relevance of his state of mind to that, to his testimony today? What is the relevance of his state of mind going to this trial, to the
It goes
testimony
right
at
to
this point?
the fear. What we know he was threatened.
Objection, that's Mr. Crowell's closing argument. He and his client have that opinion.
Okay, what I want you to do is just go back to, just keep going from the timeline at that point in time. I don't want to get too many details on how he's felt during the trial. Okay?
The trooper back on 11/26 continued to press for more information. And there were more questions about why you guys left the Bronco up there. Do you remember what you said?
Because I was too drunk to remember. I didn't remember why.
Is it fair to say that basically, other than acknowledging that you were in the Bronco, everything else was excuses about not remembering, or you lied?
Yes, sir.
And did it, when you were, did you get any enticements or other encouragements to stop lying and tell the truth, answer the questions truthfully?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall any incentives or statements from the trooper that,
Not specifically.
did he hint that one of you is less culpable than the others as an incentive?
Yes, sir.
Did you understand what he was saying at the time?
No.
Do you know what culpable means today?
Kind of. Not completely.
What would be your understanding today of culpable?
Less,
Responsible, something like that? Less guilty?
Objection, leading,
That's leading, sustained.
Do you recall him saying, less something, right? Is that what you're saying? That's your understanding of it?
yeah,
And that it wouldn't be fair to that person?
yeah.
Did that move you at all to consider telling him what happened?
Not at that time, no.
Did he give you his information and tell you to think about it?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever call him back?
No, sir.
So that interview ended, and then what?
He let me back out of the truck, and I went back to Alyssa's sister's vehicle and got a ride back to David's house.
All right, so back up a little bit. When you went back in the vehicle, where did you sit in the vehicle?
I was in the back seat in the middle.
Who was on your left?
Alyssa,
Who was on your right?
Austin.
Did you observe any behaviors or that was concerning you?
Austin said that when we got back to Taven's that we would talk.
All right, back up to the car. Do you recall, put yourself in that place. When you got back in the car, did you see Austin Barrett making any movements that concerned you?
After we
When you're in the car?
when I got back in, after we started driving away, he reached back under the seat and grabbed something.
What did he grab?
He grabbed his phone and the black pistol.
Did he say anything to you?
That when we got back to Taven's house, he wanted to talk about what I was talking to the trooper for.
Was there another vehicle? Were you traveling together with another vehicle?
No, it was just Alyssa's sister.
There wasn't another vehicle in front of you or behind you?
There was a trooper vehicle and Colt's personal vehicle, I think. Black truck.
And so you were heading to Taven's house. Who's Taven? He's
Dominic Johnson's little brother.
and who owns the house, or who's the adult in the house?
At the time, it was Misty, but it's her grandfather's house.
Misty Johnson, Dominic's mother.
Yes.
And once you got there, tell us about what you told Austin when he confronted you about what did you tell the troopers?
I told him that I said I was too drunk to remember anything and that I didn't say anything about him.
So when you got out of the car to talk with those two troopers, did your lying have anything to do with the fact that Austin was in the car?
Yes.
Was this the first time that any of these guys, Austin Barrett, or Dominic Johnson, or even Eric Almendinger, confronted you about what you told the troopers when you had contacts?
Was this the first time?
Yeah.
No.
Was there an earlier time that they asked, this is your first contact with the troopers?
No, my dad, when I was at my dad's house on Thanksgiving,
The 25th, right, oh, the day before, okay.
my dad was trying to stay at the house for Thanksgiving, but he was leaving to go to Willow, and he said that he didn't want.
Objection here, Senator. You've been a witness in this case.
That's hearsay.
Here's the point. Was Austin with you when you went to your dad's for Thanksgiving?
Austin and Alyssa.
And what did Austin say that concerned you on Thanksgiving?
It was my dad, or I called the cops on my dad because I didn't want to be outside. And when they showed up, they asked me about,
Okay, so,
that was the first time.
so, your dad locked you out because he was heading out? Is that what you're saying?
Objection leading.
What do you mean?
That
he
is
locked-
leading.
What do you mean he said? Go, fill that in a little bit. You don't have to say what your dad said. Just tell us what your dad did. And then, I know you're not familiar with these rules, but this will continue if you try to be mindful of that. That
Objection, Mr.
any
President.
witnesses that have not testified here, when you say what they said, that's hearsay. So you can talk about what you saw, what they did, okay? So right now, we know that you went over there for Thanksgiving, but your dad was not having Thanksgiving there.
No.
And you called the cops on him because you said,
I didn't want to be outside that night. I wanted to be
Okay,
at home.
and as a result of that, the point here is, it sounds like the police came and you had police contact.
Yeah.
Where was Austin when that happened?
He was a little ways up the road.
He was walking away.
Yeah.
And did the police say, what did the police say to you? Were they going to do anything?
He said that if my dad didn't want me at the house, then I couldn't be there.
And then, what did you do after that? Did you start walking?
Well, the cop also said, he asked me, do you know about the disappearance of that kid?
Okay.
I don't remember on that kid on the news or the words to the effect of that.
Okay. Now, this is this Palmer Wasilla Police, not Alaska State Troopers?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you remember what you told the officer?
Told him I didn't know anything. I
You
told
didn't
him
know
I didn't know anything.
So you also lied to that officer?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So how did you reconnect with Austin?
He was only a couple hundred yards. He was walking with Alyssa up the road a little bit.
Did the officer see them walk away when he was talking to you? Do you know? Actually, the question is, do you know if the officer stopped and talked to them?
Objection, speculation.
I'm asking if he knows.
Lay a foundation. It's really a lack of foundation question.
All right,
So lay a foundation.
the foundation is, you went to your dad's, you got locked out, you called the police, they came, you were with Alyssa and Barrett. The officer wanted to speak with you. The other two walked away. You caught up with them. What happened then?
Austin wanted to know what he said to me. told him what he said, and that they drove. I think they said they drove past him.
And you assured Austin, you told him what? What'd you tell Austin?
I told him that I didn't say anything.
Do you think he was satisfied with that?
Objection, speculation.
That is
Let
speculation.
me ask you this then. Do you recall, was Austin pretty much hanging around with you all the time after this, or?
Objection vague, unless we've heard goes through the days, being around with you all the time.
Okay,
Well,
give a parameter. That's a fair objection.
We are going through that, but
Right.
we're going through it in detail.
Okay.
So how, this is, so did he say anything after that about good job or anything else?
He didn't really elaborate in front of Alyssa.
Okay. All right. Well, that concluded the first interview. Do you recall being present for the November 30th? This is what, 5 days later? Interview with Trooper Wegson and Sergeant Ingram.
Yes.
And when they brought you, how did you get to the station?
They,
Well, let's back up a little bit. So on 11/30th, where did this interview take place?
at the trooper station,
All right,
or at the Wassail police station.
okay. And did Sergeant Wegson read what we call Miranda rights to you?
The juvenile version, yes.
Do you know the difference? I mean, you've heard testimony, and that's fine too, but did you know the difference at the time between a juvenile Miranda?
Relevance to any of the issues as to why does it matter whether he knows the difference between which rights the officer has to read?
Well, I think it leaves the context of what the interview was about. I mean, you had a formal one, now it's a more formal one. I mean, his conduct during the interview, his answers are all what we're talking about in this case. So the context of the interview that's ripe for relevance. So
And specifically, Your Honor, it has to do with how his mother showed up.
that's fine.
Do you remember, so after he read you these rights, what right did you exercise? Do you even know what those rights are today? Do you remember?
I kind of know what they are, but basically the juvenile version just says that I can have my parents present if requested.
All right. What is your understanding of the other rights other than you could have a parent present?
That just that like that if you want a lawyer, you can have one. At the time, I didn't fully appreciate what it meant.
What at the time, if you put yourself back in that place, when you were told you could have a lawyer if you chose to before speaking with them, what did you think that meant at the time?
Usually to me, it's like if you're guilty, you ask for a lawyer.
So
I didn't think I was guilty, so I didn't want a lawyer.
you didn't think you needed a lawyer,
No.
but you did ask for your mother or a parent. You asked for your mother specifically. So at that point, did the interview stop? And they called your mother?
Yeah,
And how long did you wait there in that room before they came back in to continue the interview?
30, 40 minutes.
Now, in this interview, did you share more information than you did in the first interview?
Yes.
Do you recall what they wanted to speak about first? For example, was it similar to the last interview? Did they start with the Bronco? Did they get right into David's disappearance and what happened to David?
I don't remember exactly what they started off with.
When the interview started, your mom is there, and why did you want your mom there?
I don't remember. I just wanted her to be there because
Were you scared, or what was? Do you know what? I'm
Sustained.
thinking,
Ask.
What feeling was you? What did you have when you said, "Yeah, I'd like my mom here"? Think back. Take your time. If think back.
I didn't want to really talk to them, but when my mom got there, she indicated to me that she wanted me to tell my side of the story. But I wanted her there, I don't know, because that made me feel more secure.
So, do you remember telling them about Thanksgiving early on? And would it help to look at the transcript of?
Yeah.
And that is evidence number what? So the jury understands that? We have it in 309. Okay.
This is a transcript of that interview. States Exhibit 309. And as I go through the interview with you, I'll refer you to the pages so you can refresh your memory of what you said and why you said it is the point I'll be asking you. Okay? Once you go to page 14. All right. So on page 287 at the top, Trooper Wegson asked you about who was this kid that was at your dad's house on Thanksgiving with you? What'd you say? Or what was the name you used?
Nathan.
And who was?
Page numbers, because the jury will get the page numbers, they don't get the big stand.
This is page 14,
That's
Yeah.
what I said. It was 14.
page 14. Just speak up a little louder, okay?
The witness, Mr.
Both of you.
Am I hard to hear? Is that good?
That's good, yes.
Who's Nathan?
That was the name that the cop used at when.
But who is Nathan?
He was.
Who do you think the officer?
He meant David Grunwald.
Did Austin Barrett have a different name or a nickname?
Andrew.
Andrew. Okay. And you told Trooper Wegson about what you just testified, that you were pulled over.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Trooper Wegson now wants to review with you, and we're not going to go into it much because it's been heard, about your contact with Investigator Culp that day.
Yes, sir.
And the cab ride. What did you tell him, top page 15, about when he asked you about Investigator Culp?
That I was drunk and I got picked up in a tan car,
And then what?
and then I got a cab ride home.
All right. So far, you're acknowledging that much about your presence after the murder of David Grunwald.
Yeah.
He asked you who you were with. Middle of the page.
Dominic and Eric.
Did you tell Sergeant Wegson why you were in the car, what you were doing?
I said, I don't know. I was just along for the ride.
Okay, so you're hiding information, you're withholding information at this point too, right?
Yes.
When did your mom ask you? Did follow up with that question if you had any involvement?
Yes, my mom asked me if I had any involvement in this.
What'd you tell her?
No.
That was a lie too?
Yes. What page?
I'll let you know here. It's not here, this doesn't matter. It's now, bottom page 18. Did your mom, what did your mom say?
Bradley, it sounds like they have evidence.
And what'd you say in response?
I said, what evidence?
Okay. Why did you make that response?
I didn't know what evidence they had. I wanted to know.
And so on page 19, regarding the question about the Bronco, what did you, what was your response beginning with okay?
Then, where?
Okay. Yep.
Then I didn't get fucking put in there. I didn't fucking willingly know it was his Bronco. I thought it was a car.
What did you mean by didn't willingly?
It was,
I didn't get willingly put in there. I didn't willingly know. What were you trying to convey? I mean,
I was trying not to talk about it, but I accidentally slipped up and was acknowledging that I didn't want to be there, but I didn't want to. I don't know how to explain it.
did Trooper Wegson try to assure you of anything on the bottom of page 20?
This one? Oh,
Yeah.
20?
Just read it. You don't have to read what was the assurance he gave you, if he gave you one?
He said, you think for 1 second that your buddies that we've already talked to are sticking up for you so that they don't catch a murder rap? Excuse me. You think for 1 second that your buddy Eric Almendinger and Dominic Johnson are sticking up for you? That they have some sort of loyalty to you that prevents them from talking about you to prevent them from going to jail for the rest of their life? You're wrong. They will throw you under the bus in a hot minute.
All right, I'll stop there. What were you thinking at the time that he was saying that to you? What impact did that have on you?
I thought that either he was lying or that the others might have kept me around so that way they could just blame everything on me. I didn't know what he was talking about.
So on page 22, when Trooper Wegson says, I got 2 words for you, auto waiver, did you know what that meant?
Not when he said it, no.
At your age, at 16 back then, if you were arrested for a crime, where do you think you would be taken?
When he said that,
Yeah.
he said that I would go to Matsu pretrial.
No. As a juvenile. Did you get the point that he was making? I'm clarifying, Your Honor.
Do a
Did
phone.
you understand what he was trying to tell you when he talked about auto waiver and Matsu?
He said that basically that I was a grown-up from that point on.
Did that change your thinking about disclosing more or telling the story? That warning that this is how this is what it looks like? Did you understand that?
Yeah,
What did you understand?
that
Well, if you did understand it, what kept you from starting to cooperate at that point in time? Try not just, just listen to my question. Don't keep reading the transcript because I want you to focus on what I'm asking you. If you understood that in this case, without your cooperation, you could be charged as an adult. Why didn't you, if you understood what he was saying, what was it that kept you from starting to cooperate at that point?
I didn't want to be put in a position where Austin or Dominic or anybody found out that I was talking to Sergeant Wegerson.
Cooperating?
Yeah.
He has to speak a little louder because
Yeah,
the
you need
mic's
to speak
farther
up.
away. So
Bradley, let me just leave these over here. I'll refer you to the page when the time comes.
slide it as close
Right.
as you can get it, Mr. Renfro.
Yes, sir.
Good. Okay.
All right. Do you recall your mom asking you, do you know where David is?
Yes.
What'd you tell her, if you remember?
I don't remember. I said I didn't know where he was.
All right, I'm going to refer you to page 26. Further down the page, you lied to your mom, and then what did you go on to say?
I'd fucking tell you if I knew where the kid was.
You know, here's the thing. Let me help you a little bit on this. You don't have to read the script and then read it verbatim. You can read it and then summarize what exactly you conveyed to your mom in your own words. So if you could read from... he can read the script. He can read his exact words. That's fine, too.
Can I at least get a word out, please?
Go ahead, Mr. Thompson.
I mean, you have the transcript, you have the recording, so getting him to just ad-lib what he said in the interview, I think him reading the script is probably giving the jury more accurate information than him just ad-libbing out what he told Sergeant Langston on that day.
Sure, we'll do that.
Okay.
All right, so starting here, go ahead and read it.
I'd fucking tell you if I knew where the kid was, I wouldn't be sitting here in this room because I'm not. And then Sergeant Wegerson says Bradley, and then my mom says getting fucking charged with murder. And Sergeant Wegerson says Bradley, and then I say I didn't do anything, so I'm fucking good.
All right, so you're still lying here, and what is going on in your head at that time to continue? Now your mom is there to continue. What were you thinking at the time?
Can you repeat the question?
So, you deny knowing where David was, you said.
Yes.
And you went on to say, I wouldn't be sitting here in this room because I'm not getting charged with murder. Is that why you were lying? You were afraid of being charged with murder? Is that what you're saying?
I didn't want to. I was lying because I didn't want to say anything about the others.
But you framed it as that you didn't want to be charged. You're saying the motivation is still the others finding out you're cooperating?
Yeah.
Well, as this continued, do you recall how you were feeling at the time?
Nervous.
All right. So right after that set of questions and answers, what did you blurt out?
Worst case scenario, I burned his truck.
Why? So now you've gotten to the point where you have admitted a crime,
Yes.
or what you believe to be a crime at the time. Why at this point did you give up that information? What were you thinking? What was the message you were trying to convey?
That I
Speak up.
that I didn't do anything else.
Is that true today?
Yes.
Now, at this point, for you to page 301, I mean, 28. Further down, you are asked by your mother, do you need a lawyer?
Yes.
And you told her no? Why is that? Did you tell her no, you didn't need a lawyer?
I told her no.
And now you're into this interview, you've just admitted a crime. Why did you feel like you didn't need a lawyer?
Because I didn't think that I was guilty
Okay.
about what they were asking me about.
Now, as it continues, you were asked about allegiances with these guys. Do you recall at that point in the interview how you responded? And if not, I'll get you to that page.
That
Specifically, well, he didn't say. So you named off some people. This is on page 29. Who did you name as, in answer to the question of allegiances?
I said Devin.
Okay, any other names?
I said that Eric and Dominic ride along with Devin.
Okay. And Sergeant Ingram at that point was asking, what did you think you owed them? Why would you, what did you think by that? What did you say about, what do you owe them, basically?
That what did they do for me? I said but what I said was I don't owe them anything.
Okay, you didn't owe them anything. So, why didn't you disclose more about Eric and Dominic and Devin?
I said I'm not going to sit here and talk about them.
Why? I know what you said, but why did you say that?
I didn't want to say anything about them to bring them into this.
And so at the bottom of the page, well, what about the question from your mother about David's parents and needing to know and needing closure? Did that, when your mom said that, did you think about what she was saying, what that meant? And was that enough to persuade you to start cooperating?
A little bit, but I didn't say anything about what happened in the beginning. And closer to the end of the interview, I agreed to cooperate.
Well,
Yeah.
okay. So on page 31, page 31, middle of the page, Sergeant Wegson is speaking to you about your mom being there. And starting there, what did Trooper Wegson tell you about your mom being there and asking, in with your mom's questions, the prior page about?
He says, your mom here is making smart decisions. She's telling you cooperate with the investigation because mom sees something that you don't, and it's not your fault. Look at me when I tell you this. You don't have the part of the brain that's fully developed that controls self-preservation just yet. That's why insurance companies tell young male drivers, hey, your insurance costs more.
Okay, that's good enough. So he's trying to explain to you something. Did you know what he was trying to explain to you at the time?
No.
Well, he tells you your mom is trying to look out for your best interests. Do you know what that means?
What would be good for me?
Mm-hmm. Did that persuade you to start cooperating?
I didn't fully cooperate.
When he told you that when Sergeant Wegson told you he didn't believe you caused the death of David, but he knew you had knowledge of it, him assuring you that he didn't think you were guilty of murder, did that persuade you to cooperate?
No,
Why is that?
because I didn't want to say anything about Austin or Dominic or Eric.
All right. Now, you've already told Trooper Wegson that you burned the Bronco, right? You've admitted that now.
Yes.
And down further in the interview, he asks you, was David in the vehicle? And do you remember your response?
I don't remember.
Page 34, towards the middle.
I said, no, I got picked up.
Okay, so you lied, right?
Yes,
So at this point, you're telling basically the same story that you told Trooper Colt on 11/26. You're sticking to that for now?
yes.
All right. When your mom asked you that, or pointed out David was already missing, what was your response?
I said, I guess that's none of my business.
And why did you say that?
I was trying to change the topic.
Continuing your denial of knowing anything about what happened to David.
Yes.
All right. So he's gonna, he's gonna have you come clean about burning the Bronco, and then seek your cooperation for more information. Now, he tells you that, you got picked up by the cab, and then, so he's telling you he knows that. Now, what did you tell Trooper Wegson when you started telling the story about driving the Bronco up the hill? And we're going to be starting on
At Baldy,
where the Bronco was burned.
I
Who was
told-
driving at the time? He asked.
I think I said Dominic.
Okay, don't worry about this. Do you remember? Okay, all right. And, well, I guess on top of that, so you get your full statement, you did say, I guess it was Dominic, but what else did you say in that statement? Thank you.
It could have been Eric, but I don't. And
Okay, so, do you know why? I mean, who was driving the vehicle?
Dominic,
Did anybody else drive that vehicle, that Bronco, that night?
no.
All right, do you know why you said it could have been Eric?
I didn't want to say anything about. I didn't want to tell them who was actually driving it.
Okay. All right, let me bring you down to the bottom of that page. That's page 39. No, it's not. All right, so when Trooper Wegson asked you, you tell him, you finally tell him Dominic's driving. You tell him that you guys are going up Baldy. And then he asks you who set the fire. Did you tell him who set the fire at that time? If you don't remember,
I don't know if I told him who.
he's doing most of the talking there, so trying to focus on what you say. All right. On page 42. Thank you. He's asking pretty straightforward questions. You've told him you're in the back seat, Dominic's in the driver's seat, and he says Eric's in the front right passenger seat. How did you respond to that at top of page 42?
I said, that's a good question. I think he was in the front seat.
So what was behind the statement, that's a good question? If you can think back and being put in that position, why was it hard just not to say yes or that's true?
Because I didn't want to tell him exactly what was going on.
What was your fear if you had?
That if they heard that I was saying anything, that they might try to kill me.
All right, I'm going to refer you now to page 44. Oops. So, Trooper Wegson, making another appeal to you. You know, he confronts you. I know the truck gets set on fire, and he already knows you did it. What did you respond to the assertion that I already know you did it?
I replied with a question. I said, I did it.
And how did Trooper Wegson respond to that?
He says, what I'm asking you is, in my mind, like, I remember being 16. All right, none of us were perfect when we were 16. None of us. We did. I'll classify it as stupid stuff, okay? Because, again, we don't have that part of our brain that controls the, looking forward and the consequences and that sort of stuff. It doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you 16. It makes you a 16-year-old boy. Keep going.
Yeah, just a little bit more, because...
So what I'm telling you now is I already know. You've already kind of admitted it to me in your own words in this hypothetical scenario, worst case scenario that you talked about. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't even care about it.
Okay. So, Trooper Wegson is... What is he trying to tell you by talking about what it is to be a 16-year-old?
Objection, speculation.
All right, so
The word speaks
I
for itself.
withdrawn,
Thank you.
okay? So, why, let me ask you this, your state of mind. When he talked about that, what you just stated, or what you just read he stated, did you relate to that at all?
No.
What about when he said that he doesn't even care about that part, burning the Bronco? Did you relate to that, or what do you think he meant by that?
I didn't know what he meant.
Did that move you to cooperate any further?
No.
As you sit here today, do you understand what he was trying to tell you?
Not really.
Let's move on. All right, still about the Bronco. Do you remember what you told Trooper Wegson when he asked you straight up, did you burn this up?
I said I did it.
That you did it?
Yeah.
Did you deny it first?
Yeah.
And you're ahead of me. All right. Now, when he asked you again,
What page?
page 49, regarding who was driving, who called the cab? Do you recall what you said?
I don't know. Maybe it was Dominic.
You don't remember? Okay, well it's on page 49.
I said.
You said.
I said, no. Then Dominic called the cab. I'm pretty sure.
All right. So, is that true or false?
It's true.
Did you tell him where you're going in the cab?
To Alyssa's house.
Did you answer the question about who paid for the cab or money? Who had the money for the cab? Do you remember what you said?
Eric's money. It was Eric's money.
Did you say anything else?
That me and Dominic were both homeless and that we were broke.
So who paid for the cab?
Eric did.
Eric did. Is that true? Was it true then, true today?
Yes.
And in the bottom of 50 page, you just said about Eric, Dominic is broke. Bottom of page 51. What does your mom say?
My mom says he's homeless.
He being?
Me.
All right. Back to questioning about David. When they asked you, when Trooper Wegson asked you about David, did you admit knowing David or deny knowing David?
I denied knowing David.
But had you ever seen him or knew the name, recognized the name, David Grunwald?
Yes.
Why did you lie about never meeting him or never not knowing who he was?
I didn't want to associate with that name.
And there could be lots of reasons for denying knowing David. What was the first motivation or thought you had for I would be in trouble, or I didn't want to get framed, things you've said? What was in your mind at the time, if you can recall, why you denied knowing David?
Because I didn't want to tell them anything about what happened to him.
Because
I didn't want anybody to find out that I was talking to the police about this, so that way they didn't, they being Dominic, Austin, or Eric.
that was your primary motivation at the time?
Yeah.
When confronted about you're just trying not to be a snitch, which is another motivation, were you trying not to be a snitch?
I mean, in a sense, I wasn't trying to be. I just didn't want to. Because I knew at the time, like, sooner or later, it comes out. Sooner or later, it comes out what you said, or.
So just to clarify, those are two different things. Snitching on your friends, your associates, and or the fear that you express. Are you saying that you weren't concerned about, at this point, snitching on Eric Almendinger, Dominic Johnson, and Bradley Renfro? Is that what you're saying? That it was the fear of them finding out that you cooperated?
Yes.
If you didn't have that fear, would you have cooperated? Would snitching have kept you from cooperating, other than that fear?
No.
I'm going to refer you to page 56. Starting with all right, so if this, you were there, but first of all, have a read from your mom saying who did it, all the way down to your mom's statement at, is it 56? Yeah, to here. Just in your mind, read that for now. Well, actually, you can go ahead and read the transcript, but this is where people are talking over each other, not because you're being interrupted. Now, if you remember otherwise, because we're just listening to it, you can say so, but that that's not necessarily the point. So it sounds disjointed, and I don't know if you're talking to each other or, but nonetheless, your mom asks you who did it.
I said, no, if I fucking did, I wouldn't be sitting here because I'd be clear fucking innocent. I wouldn't be in a fucking investigation.
What does your mom say next?
But you're sitting here.
And
She says, but you're sitting here telling me or them that you are afraid of disappearing. But the transcript says,
yeah,
sorry.
well, you're reading what your mom's full sentence.
Yeah, so it says, but you're sitting here telling me or them that you're afraid of disappearing, disappearing. If they think you're a snitch, nobody's going to know nothing
Okay.
beyond these walls besides us.
All right. Did that ease your concerns?
No.
Why did that not ease your concerns, being told nobody's going to know?
Because I knew different.
What did you think?
That
What do you mean you knew different? What did you believe at that time?
what I believed was that everything.
This is on page
Like-
57.
Oh, you want me to read what I said?
Maybe not. Let's see. Okay, so
I say
here's your wait, hold on. Here's your mom. And what is your mom? Okay, so okay, start with your statement,
I
and
said-
skip the the people talking over each other.
I
Page
said
57.
everything I say is going to go into a report. Everything I say is going into a report. And then I say it's going into court. Everybody is going to know exactly what I said. My mom says
Wait just a second. Yeah. Okay, your mom says.
it doesn't have to say your name. And I said it will, though, because that's how
Then it's
And then-
indiscernible.
indiscernible.
Do you remember what you would have said at that time? That's how what?
It works, or
Okay. So your mom is wanting you to cooperate, and you're trying to explain that I won't be anonymous. It will come out. That was your concern?
yes.
You know, that may be a good time to take a break. It's been an hour and a half. Let's go ahead and recess for our 15-minute morning break. We can go off record.
Okay, Bradley. We are moving on here. Okay, I'm going to refer you to page 59. And so, to the question from Sergeant Wegson, when I tell you I know, you know who did this, you do know who did this. You just may not know that you know. Does that make sense to you? There's no audible response. But do you recall at this point in the interview, did that move you at all? Do you remember how you responded? Because there's no audible response.
No.
All right. Trooper Wegson, he says, I see you shaking your head yes, because I know it makes sense. You're not dumb. Does that help you recall at this point in the interview, even though there's no audible, can you think back? Did that make sense to you? what he's saying?
Yeah.
Okay. At the very bottom, you're asked, do you want to help with the investigation or not? Right?
Yeah. Yes.
And how did you respond?
I said I wanted to help.
How did you respond? It's on the top
Um,
of page 60.
I said, like, yeah, like I don't want to be a fucking murder suspect.
So far, you have refused to cooperate because, if I believe you testified to this, it wasn't about snitching on your friends, it wasn't about, you didn't know anything. So far it's been the threats that you received. And you answer, you don't want to be a murder suspect. So is there another, what does that mean to you? I mean, it's another motivation not to cooperate, or did you really think that they believed you did it?
I didn't think that they thought I did it.
Right. But you are telling them at this point, yeah, I'd like to cooperate.
Yeah.
All right. All right, so when we're going to go through just how much or how little cooperation at this point you're willing to give. You were asked the question, I'm on page 68. You, Dominic, and Eric, all three of you go to Eric's, however you get there, and then all three of you go to Alyssa's, her shed. Do you remember how you responded? 68 now. Do you remember?
No. I said, yeah.
And when you're asked, you get to, Trooper Wigson, you get to the shed, who was carrying what? Did you help cooperate with that question?
Yeah.
Do you remember what you said?
That Eric had a backpack with food in it, and Dominic had a heater.
And you're not reading from it, transcript at that point, that's your independent memory now? You're,
Yeah.
okay. That was a bit of cooperation, is that true today?
Yeah.
A little bit, right? All right, so at the bottom of page 72, what does Trooper state to you?
Now, I feel very confident telling you this right now, because I know there's some more details that you're not letting on because you're afraid at the end of this interview there's some sort of jail time or something, right? Do you think that when we get done here you're going to jail for this?
So at that point in time, were you afraid of going to jail? Because it's no audible response.
No.
Why were you not concerned about going to jail after this interview?
I know that I didn't say anything about the others, so
And earlier you said you didn't kill him. You didn't kill David. Is that what you said earlier?
yes.
Okay, so even though it was no audible response, and your motivation was similar, not being known to have cooperated, what is Trooper Wegson, Trooper Wegson says to you, good, you're shaking your head no. I'm glad you don't feel that way. It's important you understand that although you're at a police station, we're trying to get to the bottom of this. It's absolutely a homicide investigation, but that's not going to happen at the end of this interview. And how did you respond?
I said, yeah, I know. I knew I wasn't being